The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to Sisters Speak. It's here, me, Fadeen, and we also have in the studio
Lamisa,
Mariam. We forgot our names today.
So our topic for today is going to be, so the main topic is, are you a people pleaser? We're going to discuss a little bit about our self-esteem, what the behavior is when you have low self-esteem. But before we get into that, Lamisa, would you like to tell everyone what our show is about, please?
Yep, our platform is our platform. Yeah, our show is a platform for Muslim girls and women to voice their opinions on various topics. We just want to let you guys know that all views and opinions are our own, and we respect all other similar and opposing views.
Yep, so like Lamisa said, our views and opinions are our own. Now, Mariam, if you want to join the discussion, Mariam, how can you do this?
So if you want to join the discussion, you can call in 01582 481822, or you can WhatsApp us at 0779 481822. We're also on the Instagram Live, so if you do want to join the discussion through that, feel free to do so. And we have our Sister Speak Instagram page where you can DM us. We look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts. We're also on Twitter at sisterspeak_FM. So I'm just going to get into our topic, our section called Thought of the Week. We'll just share any random anecdotes or anything that happened to us during the week that we find interesting. So I'm going to go with Mariam.
Of course.
Mariam, what is your thought of the week?
My thought of the week is just about accepting qadr, accepting decree. A lot of us talk about how when something doesn't happen your way, we should be grateful that Allah has planned something for us. But I think there's not enough emphasis, or for me personally, that I have internalized, is accepting when Allah decrees something. I think there's always the conversation or the dialogue is that Allah has done this for you, you just have to accept it. But sometimes we don't talk about how in your trajectory, how you envision something, if it doesn't work out, it's because Allah has timed it in His most perfect way. So I think for me, that's something that I've been grappling with recently. But also at the same time, I feel that is a good trigger to be grateful, because whilst you might not understand why Allah has positioned you in a certain way, you know that at the end, He is the one that is taking care of you, and He wants the best for you, and He has your best interest, and He can see some things that you cannot see. And so therefore, you just have to have that trust, and you have to trust in the timing as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think every hardship that comes, it's like we always say that Allah's never going to put something on you that's really hard on you. And even if you have to work hard for it, you just know that it's for a reason. Yeah, thank you for that, Mariam. So how would you say you were balance that hardship and trying to still work on your deen while you're still trying to work through that?
Very loaded question. I think for me personally, I take one day as it goes. And I allow myself to feel the emotions that I have, but at the same time, I don't allow it to overpower me or overcome me, because I have to rein it back in. I have to think about, these are my emotions and I'm allowed to feel them, but my principles and my core is that Allah is the one that is governing my life, and He knows what's best for me. And whilst I might not feel it at that moment, I might have to just reiterate it to myself until I internalize it. So for me, it's about having that introspection, having that reflection, but also at the same time allowing myself to feel. I think that's really important. I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. You don't need to just say, I have to trust in Allah and that's it, and that's a sign of your weak iman if you don't. I don't think that's the case. I think you're allowed to have those emotions, and you're allowed to feel all the things that you're feeling while simultaneously trying to pick yourself up. I think it's just a process and a journey.
Yeah, honestly, take everything as it comes. What's your thoughts on Mariam's thought of the week, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that you're right in the sense that we have to allow ourselves to have that time to process things. And I think actually for some people that trust in Allah, that whatever He's decreed is obvious, is the correct thing, that also helps people to overcome that overpowering of emotions that might happen. So it's also a way that we can use, not just a destination that we need to arrive at, but rather a tool that we can use to help us get to a point where, you know, we're at a stable state.
It's a long, hard journey, working with your deen, working in the dunya as well, trying to balance it all. So thank you, Mariam, for that of the
Very
week.
good thought for the week.
Louise, I'm going to move on to you.
Mine is not as deep, I guess, as Mariam's. I think we all needed to hear Mariam's one.
Mariam's ones are always so deep and
always
good.
so deep, always so good, mashallah. Mine is just about pushing yourself to try new things. I think recently I've gotten into a point where I'm very comfortable, and I feel like when I was a bit younger, not that I'm, you know,
Apostle,
but maybe I am. But I think that you know, a few years ago, like, I would try new things. For example, radio was a very new thing to me, and I would get involved and put myself in somewhat uncomfortable situations. I feel like I've gotten to a point now where I'm just, you know, comfortable, and I'm doing things like radio. I've been doing it for a very long time. I'm very comfortable with this. A lot of other things that I'm doing in life, I'm quite comfortable in that state, and I just want to push myself and try new things. I know, Mariam, you go out to network a lot. I feel like I want to go to different events, listen and hear different people's points of views. I feel like I've been sucked so much into the one thing that's a major part of my life, and I've almost been neglecting other aspects of my life that used to be so much more mentally stimulating for me. And so I want to get more involved in, you know, various different events, go and see things, do things. Recently, me and my friend went to a pottery class, and it was really fun. I was like, wow, this is something new. I've never done this before, like on the wheel and stuff. And it was great. I was like, maybe I found a new hobby, you know, that type of thing. And I feel like pushing yourself to do new things really helps us to develop in a way, but also get used to adapting to different situations. It's a very important skill. So,
well, thank you for that. That's a great thought of the week. And just at the point that you made, I think, you know, when you're joining something new, you always have that little anxiety that it's my first day and I'm going to do it. But for example, when you start a new job, I've been working on my part-time job for like 2 years now. And I remember my first day where I was so anxious and I was like, I'm going to go in, I don't know what I'm going to do. And now I treat it like my second home from how many times I've been there. So it's just when you're consistent going somewhere, like radio, for example, you get so comfortable, you meet other people, you network. I've met so many amazing people now that I've come to radio. And Lemisa, for you as well. I think, Lemisa, you joined when you were my age.
Yes.
So it was a big step for us in our sixth form years, wasn't it?
Yeah. To go live on radio and talk about various different things. I feel like we all had that want inside of us, though. We had that thing where we're like, actually, these are topics that we want to speak about and we want to bring it to public attention. But I feel like now it's like I want to do a few more things and try and rekindle that fire. I've never thought about doing a pottery class. Maybe I should join as well. You should. It's a lot of fun. And it's very therapeutic, you know.
I guess with your friends it is really therapeutic.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for sharing your thoughts of the week. Now I'm going to move on to my hot topic. So
what about your thought of the week?
What's my thought of the week? Oh,
she thought she could skip out.
I feel like it's give it today because I'm hosting. Let me think. I don't have a thought of the week. I can't think of anything.
She did give a lot of contributory thoughts.
I did give it. Yeah,
I think you can let her off, you know.
Thank you. Wait, maybe I'll just share my thought of the week. My thought of the week is gonna be about your own needs. I know our topic today is people pleasing and how you get so involved in making others happy, but you have to put yourself first. And I think this is something that everyone should do. And I've been trying to work doing it this past like year, where I'm just trying to, you know, you should know yourself really good, and this is knowing yourself is such a long process as well, and knowing what you like. And like let me say, she's doing pottery class and you just found out that you like it, so you're gonna do it more. So that whole process of knowing yourself, knowing what you want to do, knowing what your hobbies are, your interests, it's something that I think other people also contribute to knowing, to the process of who you are going to be at the end of the day. But you for yourself, I think it's really important that reflecting, knowing who you are. So that's my thought of the week.
Very good thought for the week.
Yeah, I think it was a bit messy, but it's okay. Yeah. We'll move on to the hot topic then. So for this hot topic, there's on BBC News, there was an article. So it's AB. He was a rapper who gave up fame for faith, by Shehzad Lohar in BBC Asian Network. So I'm just going to read a bit of the headline. We're just going to talk about the financial side of it and how he gave up fame for his faith and how he thought that he was guilty about, the financial side of halal money and how you're using that haram money that he was getting from fame. So he was a 22-year-old, better known by his stage name, and he was working in grime music for over 5 years and gained a huge fan base. He was one of BBC's Asian Network's featured sound artists, but he decided to give it all up. He said he wanted to take his Islamic faith seriously, and so he could practice that the way he felt he needed to. So he said, Ibi said that he couldn't feed myself. He said, I couldn't feed myself with that money. I couldn't even give any of that to my mom. While I was trying to practice and make music at the same time, I realized that music cannot be in the same heart as the deen, my faith. So I just chose this topic because I think it's such a big step for him, and for everyone who thinks that they're sacrificing their faith for something like success or fame. It's such a hard decision to make, because you get so involved in chasing money, you get so involved in the dunya that I want to be famous, I want to be this, and you're sacrificing your faith. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this article and this big huge decision that is balancing dunya and deen.
I think we don't realize the actual courage that it takes to do that. I think on a day-to-day basis, a lot of us are met with these little choices of whether we want to stick to kind of our deen or whether we might sacrifice a little bit for it. And this is kind of on a really big level, because he was saying he was making quite a large sum of money every single month. That's something that a lot of people who are in the same field struggle to do, and yet he's achieved that, and he's giving it up because he doesn't feel like it falls in line with what he believes in. And I think that type of courage is actually something that is super hard to come by, and we all struggle quite a bit with making those decisions, and it is hard. But the fact that someone like that has done it and has come out to say that, I think it helps us to kind of renew that belief that we are on the right path and that is the right thing to do, and actually to help us take the same amount of courage when we are faced with choices of a similar nature.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so beautiful. He said in that interview that when he decided to give up all this music, he inspired so many of his listeners to stop listening to music. So every little thing that he did, I think it's a really good article, and it was a really good example of when you get too busy with the dunya and you start forgetting your deen, which is, I think, something that happens to all of us. Mariam, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just think one of the things that came to mind whilst you were saying the story is that because he gave it up, and you said that his listeners is giving up music, it reminds me of the Quran ayah, enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and that's exactly what he was doing. He's walking towards good and he's forbidding the evil, and look at the impact of that. His own listeners that were once influenced by his music is now being influenced by his good actions. So it just shows that once you center yourself with your morals and beliefs at the core, it can really transcend in so many different ways, and that can diffuse in the people that's around you, and even on his level, in an influential way.
Yeah, I think when you have such a large sum of followers, their influence is really, really big, and doing stuff like this. Would you guys think that you can sacrifice? You don't have to sacrifice your fame for faith. Do you guys think you can find a balance for it?
I think it depends what your fame is in, and whether the effect that it's having on you as well. I feel like obviously it's hard to comment being a person who's not famous.
One day.
Being a person who isn't in that situation. But, obviously you hear people and you see the interviews and things like that. There's a huge immense amount of pressure and all of these things that come with it. But also it is something that people aspire to have. I think with all things, it depends, like I said, the effect that it's having on you and the effect that it's having on your ability to practice your faith. Now, if you're famous for good things and people are following you for good things, but you don't allow that to, manifest in terms of like arrogance and things like that, and you don't allow it to corrupt you as a person, then I think that's a different situation to when fame is the only thing you're chasing and that is the essence of who you are. But again, I guess it's hard to comment because I'm not famous.
It's hard to comment, yeah. When I get famous, I'll let you know, guys.
But in my comments on that is as well, I'm not famous, but I think what can be talked about is when you're in a position of power, or if you're in any position and you have to navigate or contend with something that's going to impact your ability to adhere to Islam, or it makes you compromise your beliefs, always that you have to do the job. And I think a lot of Muslims may face this because, especially if you work in particular sectors, and it could be very minuscule things. For example, it could be just that you don't want to order something that we don't eat because it's not halal. And that's something that you have to be quite mindful of, because whilst you might your whole life you might not be eating this thing, and then suddenly you're expected to order this thing. How do you navigate that? And I think the way this person has shown in his example is that you just have to center yourself, like what is your core beliefs. And when you as a Muslim have shown that consistently in your workplace, if you show that you're a proud Muslim, if your character indicates you're a good person, and you have strived for ihsan, which is excellence in everything that you've done. So when that situation does come, when you do have that dialogue, I don't think people will have grievances. I've experienced the same. I've had an instance where I had to communicate that I'm very uncomfortable with doing this certain thing because it's like a juxtaposition in a sense for me and my beliefs. I don't feel comfortable doing it. However, you should always offer the alternative. Show them that I won't be able to do this. I don't feel comfortable with this, but I'm able to compensate in other areas, and I will do the extra work. And yes, it might be a bit harder for you, but at least you're not doing that. At least you're not compromising your beliefs, and Allah is watching that. And there's so much barakah in that, and it's not going to negate your career trajectory. And you might feel that in that moment, that this is going to hinder my career prospects because I'm not being proactive. But that notion that's coming from, I guess it's like a secular way of looking at things, because in fact, when you know it, ultimately, like, it becomes from Allah. Allah is the one that's going to give you the risk. Allah is going to give you the job. So if you're sacrificing for His sake, you just got to trust that He's going to take care of you. So I think for me, it's just about being quite centered about your beliefs and being very strong about it, and being careful as well how you navigate it. I think you should always not just be someone that superimposes, just say, okay, this is my beliefs, you have to adhere. No, this is a contract that you signed, so learn to actually navigate it, and try to be helpful where you can.
It kind of comes back to your thought for the week where you're saying trusting in the qadr of Allah. These
Yeah.
situations are going to be hard and they're going to be difficult, and you might not see the benefit in the moment that you're making it, but you have to trust that down the line, and surely, like 100%, it will work out for the better.
Yeah, definitely.
There's been so many instances where I have felt that where everyone else was doing this one thing, and I thought I was the only person that didn't do it, and I was very embarrassed. I literally felt heat in my face, not doing this one thing, and although I felt at that moment that this is very embarrassing, everyone's watching me, I felt the kind of impact of it later on. I saw so many blessings. And I just think, when I look back on it, I always reflect, thinking how Allah has blessed me, because I gave that one moment of embarrassment, and no one else is going to remember that you felt embarrassed. It's only you that felt it. It translated into something so much better now for me. So I always think, just have trust that when you sacrifice something for Allah, He will give it back to you, and you have to really believe in it.
Yeah, definitely. I think embarrassment is such a big thing in not doing what you want to do. And I remember one of my thought of the weeks was, I'm embarrassed about everything, every single thing I do. I'm also embarrassed for it, for example. So I remember, there's so many experiences where you don't want to, seem too extreme in your religion, and you're sacrificing that just to, it goes into our main topic, people pleasing, but just to other people don't think that you're, too Islamic. And it has happened to me so many times. I just want to ask you guys, do you think, obviously, when taking this big, huge decision, there's always the other people that are telling you to do it or not do it. So how impactful do you think that is?
I think it has a very big impact on the person making the decision. At the end of the day, we're influenced hugely by people around us. We're influenced hugely by the peers that we have, the seniors that we have, and people who are close to us. I think it is definitely a skill, and not just a skill, but it's a very hard thing to do, to try and figure out what sits right within you, when that might contradict what the people around you are saying. It's a really hard thing to do. And I'm sure there are people around this particular person telling him that, you shouldn't do that, or, this is the wrong decision, things like that. So again, it just goes to show the courage that he had to have had to be able to be like, no, this is not something that I want to do. It doesn't sit right with me, and actually I'm going to change my direction. But yeah, the people around you influence you massively. And when that contradicts kind of your faith or the things that you feel like are right, it's a huge predicament. But again, it's important to, like Mariam kept saying, centering yourself and trying to think about what it is that you truly believe in, because at the end of the day, that's the thing you have to follow.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with influencing, there's so many, I think after Ramadan there's so many people that have given up doing all of this because they want to focus on their faith. And I think it's so beautiful because that made me, I don't know, delete all my social media or delete everything that I had public, because I'm not sacrificing, I don't want to sacrifice my faith just because I want to show people, I don't know, how famous I am or how much music I make. And also the halal haram money that you make from that, it's also, like he said, he couldn't feed himself, he couldn't feed his mom because he just felt so guilty about it. So what are God's thoughts on that haram money, halal money?
I think it's so important because when you're eating haram money, that's going to transcend in everything that you do. Your livelihood is haram. You're eating haram, so you're feeding your body. When you're doing your act of worship, your energy that you got the food from was haram. So I think it's really, really important, and we need to be really careful in how we earn money. And that's something that I'm really, really big on and strong on, because I just think that this really can impact so many ways in your daily life and even your whole entire life. Not even your daily routine, everything. I feel like it really does affect you, because that's the one, your sustenance is, you have the choice to go earn halal. So therefore you should be able to try to do that. And I think that there's more barakah in little than haram money, that it amounts to a lot. So that's my kind of thoughts on it.
Because then if you start making little halal money, then it's going to become
a compound.
It compounds. But if you make haram money at once, I think it's not gonna work out in the,
there's no barakah in it.
There's no barakah in,
and that's what you want barakah in every aspect of your life. And I think that's why it's really important. Something that was quite interesting, I was thinking, I went to this talk about pensions, and I didn't realize pensions are things that people invest, like companies invest
over time.
Over time. And I didn't really realize that when you do stocks, you think about where you're investing stocks, but pensions, I'll be completely honest, I never used to think about, okay, where's my actual money going? So that's something's food for thought.
Oh, interesting.
Our money is going to pensions, is that what you're saying?
So when you have a job and you first on board, or any type of job, they tend to take a bit of your pay slip and put into pensions.
So that when you retire, you can get that money back. Yeah.
So and what they do is they invest that in stocks. And if you're investing in certain stock, there's like fiqh behind it. You need to make sure that you're investing in the correct stocks. So you need to go research those companies. And I had zero understanding of it, and I was completely unaware. So for those people who might not be aware, there's something that you should look into, because it's really important, especially if you are capitalizing on pension. If you're not, then that's not a conversation for you. But I think just be a bit wary. You don't get taught these things at school. You just wouldn't know.
I think it's so important to get for us Muslims from where we're gonna earn our money from, because it's honestly, money is such a big part of your life. Like you're always gonna need it no matter what. And obviously Islam comes first and all of that, but you need money to eat, you need money to get dressed and everything. So to get that financial knowledge from Islamic lectures of where you're getting your halal money from, I think is really important. Mariam, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just saying that it's really important for Muslims to get financial advice, full stop. I think financial literacy is something that we really need for us to progress and to be able to infiltrate in many sectors. We have to be able to be strategic about it. And I think we've discussed this on the show before. Alhamdulillah, like our parents came and they sacrificed a lot and they were on survival mode. And now we have the opportunity to go in the sectors that we want to do. And now we have to give back. I think it's really important, if you want to expand and you want to grow in different sectors, you really need that financial foundation, and so that's what I'm quite strong in the on that front, that we should try to be financially literate, because that's how Islam spread as well. It wasn't, without money it wouldn't have spread. You have to have that financial literacy. Yeah, definitely. I think I lack a bit on that financial. I still lack on it. That's why we need to go to Wahid. We need to get Sadiq back on the show. We do. We need to get. We need to get that financial advice constantly, because money is obviously money doesn't change, but the way you use it, I think it does change in your life. Let me say, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree. I guess it's really important. It's just finding the time to. Maybe that's one of the new things that I should try and get into. But yeah, let's pick a trip to Wahid in London. Yeah, I think making the information easily accessible also is a really important point, because a lot of us do want, for example, we want to invest in halal stocks so that we have a good passive source of income, that type of thing, but to actually sit down and take the time to learn about it, to learn how to do it, to learn what actually constitutes halal stock, in what way can it be halal, in what ways can it be not halal, knowing those types of things so that you can then discern yourself all of that takes a lot of time, which a lot of people unfortunately may not have on their hands. So I think, you know, having that information to be made more easily accessible would also help with that.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. For example, we live in Luton, so it's really easy for us to obviously not gain halal money, but you know, you can just go buy, I don't know, halal food and with the halal money. But with other people, for example, in London, my sister, she was living there. It was horrible finding halal meat. You just can't do it. So I think the main point that we're going to take from this, what I'm going to take from this, is that with the halal money, the more you try to be halal and go get halal food or halal anything with halal money, it's always going to come back in your life. So we have now 55 seconds. So, and thank you guys for that hot topic. What's the what do you say, the last
kind of summarize?
The last kind of summarize is always be firm on your deen. I think it's really hard, but it's important to not chase the dunya, because it's not going to come with you. You're not going to take your fame, you're not going to take your money, you're not going to take your valuables to your grave. All you're taking is your deen, what you did in life. And I'm really strong about this because I really like to talk about this stuff. So in the second half, so we have 20 seconds. So in the second half, our main topic is, are you a people pleaser? We're going to talk about low self-esteem, signs that you have low self-esteem, our kind of experiences in people pleasing and how we get peer pressured into it. So if you have any thoughts, do let us know. We're live at Inspire FM Luton or on Instagram at Sisters Speak. See you in the next half. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Ya hala, ya hala, ya hala, ya hala.
Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to Sister Speak. We're now in the second half. So in the first half, we were discussing a bit of halal money, some financial Islamic advice that you can get, and we also shared our thoughts for the week. Now in the second half, we are going to move on into our main topic, which is called, are you a people pleaser? So we're going to discuss the negative effects, the impact on our mental health, and how we can overcome this behavior, as well as low self-esteem and a kind of our own experiences with dealing with people pleasing or peer pressure. So before we get started, I'm just gonna give you our roughly definition of what people pleaser is, so that everyone's kind of understands what the topic is going to be about. So people pleasing is a behavior where someone prioritizes the needs and desires of others over their own, often at the expense of their own well-being. This can lead to a range of negative outcomes, including burnout, resentment, and a lack of fulfillment or satisfactions in one's own life. So I think I chose this topic because I think it's so important to, like I said in my thought of the week, to put yourself first and put your needs first. But the kind of constant chase of I'm gonna prioritize everyone else, just for example, just so they like me, it's not good for your own mental health. It's not good for your life, because at the end of it, you're the one living your life. You're not living your life for others. So so the first question is, would you consider yourself, so we have Lamisa and Mariam here, so would you consider yourself a people pleaser? So Lamisa, I'm going to start with you. Do you think that you put other people's needs before yours at the expense of your own needs? It's a hard question.
No, I don't think I do very often. That's the honest answer. I think what should I say? I feel like it's been a while where I've learned that I've learned that not to put myself at the expense of others. Yeah, those are the words I wanted to get out, guys. So in terms of people pleasing, I do think I consider other people and their needs, but it wouldn't ever be to the point where I'm sacrificing myself for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Mariam, do you have any thoughts?
I think I still struggle with it, but it's something that I have progressed. So I haven't come to the stage where I think Misa has. I do sometimes find myself that I'll just do that extra work just to keep things sane. But I definitely think I've come very, very far in that. So now I'm a bit more upfront with if I feel like a need needs to be accommodated, I will make sure I fight for that. And it has positively impacted me in so many ways, because the more you kind of recognize in yourself that you have these traits, the better your circle is, because they value that you value yourself, and you feel a lot better about yourself. So for me, it has really refined my circle, it's really refined myself, and it's helped me to navigate a lot of different conversations. I feel like now I'm a very I'm becoming very good at difficult conversations, and I won't be left quite startled as I used to. So yeah, I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it is definitely a work in progress, and I think that you're always in that mindset. Obviously, helping people and helping other people's needs is such an important thing in your life and how you see yourself as a person, how other people see you. But the putting your needs at the expense of other people's needs is something, because if you're not fulfilled with what you're doing with yourself, how are you going to help other people, you know? So I relate to Mariam. I think I still am a people pleaser, and there's nothing that I can do about it, I feel like, because I just feel I want to make everyone like me. That's the thing. Do you know, I think my thought of the week when I first started was, it's okay that people don't like you and stuff. So I think I've not made progress about that, and I think people pleasing is such a thing in my life where I just want to please everyone. I just want to be like, I need you to like me. I need you to like me. And I think that is a sign of low self-esteem, which is what we're going to discuss today. Mariam, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it's also got to do with your age as well.
Yeah,
I'm not
probably.
being ageist, but I think a lot of when you're younger, because you're in a situation where you're around a lot of people, there's a lot of peer pressure, and then you have the pressure of being defined by your grades, and you have to be pleasing to the people around you, the people in your extended family or your family, and then society, and you're defined by this one little grade. You become someone that is just accustomed to making sure that everyone is pleased with you. And so that's intrinsically the way you kind of navigate things. And as you grow older, when you have the onus on yourself, when you feel like you've got autonomy and you start to define your own self or what you measure is successful, that's when that kind of dissolves. But it's also very important to have a good support network that also think the same or are aligned in that essence, because if there are people around you that are toxic, they would make you feel disgruntled, and they will kind of unwind any progress that you've made, because the way they behave is just going to really pollute the way you think.
Yeah, I think what you said was a really good point, and you actually moved on to one of my questions, which was the what will people say thing. So like for the grades, for example, my parents, they work so hard. They're immigrants. They came from India. They tried to work so hard for me to get bad grades. So everyone's gonna say, your parents work so hard, and at the end of the day, what are you doing? You're getting bad grades. You're doing this. So that pressure that you have also from that you always have to be this perfect girl with perfect grades. And so what do you guys think is the kind of cultural pressure that we have? Lemisa.
It's a very big question, and it's a lot to think about, and there's a lot that goes into it. I think the point to which that it's gotten in our culture, where I feel like slowly we are coming out of it, actually. But there was a specific point where it was what everyone else said mattered. Doesn't matter what you feel or what you think at all. Like, it was at that stage where it's like, we do not care about what you think, but it's about what everyone else will think. And we have to try and, please them in that sense. And I think that's kind of the pinnacle of what people pleasing is. And that's very unhealthy. That's come out, with so many adverse outcomes for the people who have been affected by it, forcing people to do things that they don't want to do, all for the sake of saving face, all for the sake of, making sure that you still have status within society and that type of thing. So obviously that is not a good thing. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing considering others. I don't think it's a bad thing to try and be helpful towards others, or, taking into account certain people's needs or considerations. That's absolutely fine. But to the point where you are sacrificing everything about yourself, or where it's affecting you adversely, that's the point where I think we need to try and think about how we can still be considerate of other people's needs whilst not harming ourselves in any way. It's a hard thing to do.
And I think on that point as well, I think in those kind of situations, if you're thinking about what other people are saying above Allah's opinion, that's where you're going to find yourself in a very bad rabbit hole, because you're ultimately placing or positioning people's perception of you above Allah's perception of you and what He requires from you. And I think that a lot of the times that does kind of spiral into abuse of disadvantaged people, or taking people's voice away in the expression of religion, which is something that I'm very against. So I think it's been really, really important to again, as we said in the first half, to center where is this coming from, and who is the one that is accountable for you. And you need to be, you're a slave of Allah, and that's it. It doesn't mean that you be inconsiderate and you don't take care of people's needs, or you don't take care of people's emotions, and you just say, well, I pray 5 times salah and that's it, like Allah thinks I'm the best. No, it's not that. You have to have a mizan, which is balance. You have to have a balance between everything.
And it's kind of like we talk about polytheism and things like that in terms of actually having idols which other people might worship and things like that. But I think in the 21st century, it's more about taking concepts or taking ideas or, celebrities as well. These types of things we take as other idols where we worship by in the sense of thinking about them all day, every day. And if you're always thinking about other people and thinking about what they might think, in a kind of toxic sense, also in the sense of what will people say, which is, I feel like, something that a lot of our forefathers have fallen into the trap of, that kind of overtakes with what you're meant to be doing, which is worshipping Allah and thinking about Allah a lot more often. So it kind of falls into that as well. It's about knowing your priorities and knowing, like Mariam said, at the centre of it all, who is at the centre of it all.
Yeah, I read so many. You guys are saying all the things that I read in the articles that I read for this topic. I just wanted to get more info about it. So people pleasing, they said it stems from the fact that you want to control everyone's perceptions of you. So what I get from this is that you're trying to control everyone's perceptions, but what are you saying to everyone? Because you are trying to control what everyone thinks of you, but what do you know about yourself while you're trying to control other people's views on, like, about you? Does that make sense? So you're trying to be like, I want Mariam to think that I'm this, I want Namisa to think that I'm this, but what are you? That's the thing. That's the people pleasing thing, that we get so much pressure for it. And you're always thinking about what's going on. Like with what you said with celebrities, they also have to maintain your reputation and what you're doing, but you want to control what everyone's thinking about you. And at the end of the day, that's not the important thing. But the important thing is what you're doing that's going to please Allah, not the people, like Mariam said. So I'm just going to move on to the next question. So how can we... so with people pleasing, there's this one thing my experience with this, and with signs of low self-esteem, putting yourself in situations where you feel really tiny, you don't know how to say no. And it's like saying sorry. I think it's it's not like an ego thing, but saying no for some people is really, really hard, and it just comes back to people pleasing. So my question is, how would you guys set boundaries in your experience? Do you know how to say no really easily, or do you think about it 3-4 times and you end up saying yes?
I think with setting boundaries, it depends on the person you're setting boundaries with, and you need to understand how they will receive that boundary. So for us, if you're setting boundaries with your parents, that's a very foreign concept for them. So you have to be quite mindful of how you're going to set those boundaries. You need to discuss with them, this is how you feel, and you're going to be the consequence of what you do if you don't set that boundary. I think having that conversation to kind of show the landscape is really helpful for them to understand. And even if they don't understand, at least you took that time to describe it to them, because often it might be misconstrued that you're being rude, because for them submission is sort of a way of respect for them, and that's a notion that's been intrinsic for them. So you have to understand that this is how they think, this is how they rationalize things, and because you understand how they rationalize things, you need to work around it. So I think just being emotionally intelligent enough to understand who you're dealing with. With friends, of course, everyone has a different way of thinking as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spread yourself thin and you have to accommodate to every single person. It's just you need to know what wars you're battling with. And I think it's really just important to kind of have that essence about you where you know that these things are your triggers and these things you're not going to cross the line with, and you're going to set those boundaries. People who are good for you will respect those. And those are the people that you filter out, like you keep in your life, and those who don't, you filter out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think setting boundaries is so important. And like you said with your parents, it is such a new thing for them. And the important thing is always communicating, because they didn't have that. They didn't even think about setting boundaries. They were just doing what their parents were saying. Or when they came here, they were just thinking, they didn't even have time to think, how am I going to deal with this? But we in this generation, I feel like we have so much fuel to kind of experience what we want to do, and we don't have to... We listen to our parents, we obey our parents, but we don't have to submit to what they want to do. We can have our own kind of, life. Let me say, do you think you struggle with saying no and setting boundaries?
I think
I don't think you do. I feel like Lamisa seems to me like such a
She's a boss girl.
yeah, like a boss girl.
She really is. I learned so much from Lamisa. Although she says the same about me, I learned so much from her, and the way she carries herself, and the way she conducts herself, and the way she even navigates difficult conversations. I think I've learned so much from her.
Thank you, Mariam. I don't know what to say. In terms of saying no to people, I think it's always a difficult thing if things are uncomfortable. It's not that I don't feel the discomfort in that, or in my head, if there's a situation which is a difficult situation, I'm like, I really wish this situation didn't happen, so that I don't have to go about it in the in any way, shape or form. Because I think we all have that quality of, we don't want to let others down, yeah? But I think with me, it's been kind of ingrained in me from a young age. If something doesn't sit right with you, or if you don't feel comfortable doing something, you do not have to do it. And it is 100% your right to say so. At the end of the day, if you say it in a way, obviously you're not trying to be offensive, or if you articulate it in a way where you're like, this is my position, unfortunately, I don't agree with whatever you're saying, or don't feel comfortable with what you're saying, it's a really hard thing to do. But if you say it that way, you've done your end and you've done what you can. And like Mariam said, if these people are not going to accept that, then that is unfortunately up to them, If we talk about friendships, every single time I've been uncomfortable in a friendship kind of conversation, I'm really lucky in the sense where I've been able to say, what you said there, that was not okay with me, or what you said there, kind of crossed the line. So I don't appreciate that. The people that I've had have always been responsive to that and been like, I apologise for my mistake. And we've been able to move on with it. If people aren't able to accept their mistakes, that's not on you. And I think that's one thing we have to realise.
I agree with that. I think it comes with the experience of life. I think because
100%.
Yeah, you get more, what your personality is, and you kind of learn how to be more confident in yourself. And I think that's something that we all need to work on.
Yeah, I think it is dependent on people's personalities.
Yeah.
It's a huge part. If your personality is one way and having that side to you is more natural to you, then these types of things are going to come easier to you. But if it's not part of your personality and it's something that you might have to learn through experience, then that is what it is.
And I think it's also recognizing that someone may have a perception of you, but that's just a perception. And even if they argue or justify that, you demonstrated this, especially if you're in a very difficult time in your life and you demonstrate anomalies and you explain to them that the conditions that I was in made me like this, and I take accountability, but it's not fair for you to say this is deterministic of you. You just have to let that go. You just have to let that this person has formed their opinion of you, and they don't want to affirm to what you're saying, so that's on them. And that's the opinion they're just going to have to hold, and you're going to have to be okay with it, because everyone else around you know who you are, what you stand for, and they know that if you are struggling with something, or if you feel like you fall short of who you are, it's okay, and it takes you time to recover from that. But I don't think we should allow another person's opinion to determine how we think of ourselves, especially if you've just recently met them as well. I think it's really important to kind of lay those boundaries. Okay, that's fine, that's your opinion, and that's it.
Yeah, I wish I could do that, because with you're just constantly trying to change someone's opinion, and that is a sign of low self-esteem, because all that time that you're trying to change someone's opinion in you, that you think it's bad, you can take advantage of that time and just explore who you are with other people that accept you for who you actually are. So with people pleasing and low self-esteem also comes validation. So how do you guys think that lack of validation during, for example, your childhood affects in your people pleasing when you're older? I don't know if that makes sense. So the constant reassurance and that constant validation that you want from people, do you think that is a sign of low self-esteem?
I definitely think so.
That's such a scientific question as well.
Yeah, I think that's very scientific.
For you, Lamisa, you're a doctor.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm not an expert in this field or anything like that. I feel like there must be a connection. Yeah. Mariam, do you want to...
I think it can only give you a personal experience. I think when you're younger, if you were bullied, I think that's one good example. You were seeking justification from your peers around you to save you from this bully, and you wanted that validation for people to hear what's happening to you. And if that trauma hasn't resolved, or any kind of trauma hasn't resolved, sometimes that can manifest in a way that you want people to hear what you're saying, and so therefore you want them to validate you, because when you were younger, you were unheard. That's one way I think that can happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think it's a bad thing to get validation. You know, when people say, oh, well done and stuff like that, it makes you feel, but to constantly do stuff just to get that validation at the end, I think that's it's just toxic for your mental health, and it does have a big impact, because obviously when you're in life, you're never going to be with someone that's always going to tell you well done, well done, well done. So when, obviously I'm not in the right age to speak about this, but as you get older, you don't want that validation from people, but you're craving it.
I guess it's like you learn to find that validation within yourself.
Yeah.
I think social media has a role to play in this, because when you have social media platforms that have certain amount of likes or posts, that makes you feel a sense of gratification, because you feel that, oh, this many people have liked it, and therefore I'm popular, or therefore my picture's amazing, or I looked really good, or everyone's seeing how amazing my day was. I think that kind of psychologically kind of plays in your head, because you're constantly seeking that approval, and that's why a lot of people say don't try to showcase your life, because that's not the reality of what you're doing anyways.
Yeah, social media is such a big thing that I always like to talk about. Literally, nothing's real. And I speak from experience. When I'm revising and everything's all messed up, you all try to tidy it up, revision. Like, literally, nothing's real on social media. So from validation, there's also a fear of rejection when you are people pleasing. So I remember I had a group of friends, and so I was the only Muslim girl in that thingy. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to go out, they wanted to do this, but I was it was the month of Ramadan. So I remember they used to go out, they used to eat, and for me, just because I didn't want them to think, oh, she's not coming because she's fasting, or because she's this, she's that, I was fasting, and I still went out with those friends, just so they don't think, I don't know, that I'm too extreme, or that I don't have fun with this thing. And when I got home, I remember my parents, they were like, this is not what what are you doing? You know, my parents, they never really made me uncomfortable to the point that they didn't want me to leave the house, because it's all about experience. And I think that moment made me realize how much I'm sacrificing, that I can stay home, I can pray on time and everything, just to be accepted into that group of friends that at the end of the day, I'm not even friends with them anymore. So what do you guys think about that fear of rejection that we all have?
I just want to point out that your parents did a great job in making you learn on the ground in a granular level, as opposed to just telling you it. Just want to say that.
through experience, yeah.
Appreciation for Fareen's parents.
No, honestly, my parents, they're so amazing in this, because me and my sister have always been really, really open to every single situation, and I think it really, when you're older, it really manifested. So my parents always saying no from my parents' side would always make me want to do it, but they always said yes, so I never ended up doing anyways. So yeah, thank you to my parents if you're listening.
I did reverse psychology.
You did.
That fear of rejection is actually really difficult thing to kind of counteract. I think from a young age, from when we go to school, we have that whole, we're conscious of the people that are around us, and we're conscious of trying to be accepted within that group, and it can really influence what you do and what you don't do, and the type of person that you become, depending on your experience, on how you were able to navigate those years. And it follows you through into adulthood. I don't think that's something, whenever you go to a new place, you always have that feeling at the back of your head, like, what if, it's not like, what if they don't like me, but it basically is that.
You want to be accepted.
You want to be accepted. We all, on a level, we feel it, like, quite physically.
I think
feel
the sense of belonging is it's actually something very intrinsic in psychology. And actually, that's why we have it in the framework. In Islam, we have that sense of community, we have that sense of ummah, because it's so important for our psyche.
Very true.
Yeah, it's such a nice thing to say, because when you see, I don't know, when you see another hijabi, for example, and you're starting that first day on the workplace, such a nice, we're on the same page, we're here. And even if she's been working there for, I don't know, 10 years, it just makes you feel so accepted into that. So other things that I read about people pleasing is how it manifests differently in men and women. So I read that in men, what happens is that, we're all just pressured into being, into the standards that society has put for us. So for men is, being dominant or being the head of the family, they have to do this. And for women, we have to be submissive, we have to do this, we have to do that. So what would you guys say is that you're sacrificing your needs just to follow those standards of society. What do you guys think about that? What's the impact, the effect in your mental health?
I don't know if I can see to the fact that I think those ideologies comes from Islam, in terms of the husband being the head of the family, or the men being not dominant per se, but they're the caretakers. So I don't know if that's a negative thing, or that's a negative connotation.
I don't think it's a negative thing at all.
I think it's how there's a balance, right? Because that's what Islam strikes, a balance. So if a man is taking care of the house, if a man is providing for you, let's just talk about a relationship or marriage context, then the primary focus for the man is to take care of the sustenance, the risk, the roof of the head. Then the primary focus for the woman would be to take care of everything else in the house. So I don't think there's a negative connotation to that. I think there's a balance within that, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I do understand that those expectations can be difficult, and Allah does give us those leeways to understand how do we navigate them. I think those standards and principles are in place for a reason. They're a framework, and you can affirm to it. But I think it's just how we navigate it is upon us, and how we take care and how we exercise emotional intelligence with each other to be able to adhere to those principles.
I think in terms of Fareen's question, in terms of standards that have been put on us society-wise, and the extent to which they are forced upon us, I think that's something that we need to take a look at in terms of what we are taking. If there is something that I feel like I am forcing myself or molding myself into just to fit that standard, when it doesn't necessarily, like, it's not being healthy to me or conducive to my growth and development, then I feel like that's something that you need to look back and you need to balance out, like you said. Everything is a balance, but everything is also like individual. You need to look at your situation, your circumstance, and see what is working for you or what's not working for you, or within, because we are Muslim, or within our realms of Islam, and being able to find that balance from that viewpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the men and women question, what I want to refer is that, for example, imagine the woman starts working. Anyways, there's only 35 seconds left, so I'm not going to get too much into it. It was a big question. I should ask it at the beginning, but I think
it's a food for thought. I guess our listeners can join the discussion, send their thoughts to us.
Yeah, send your thoughts to us on Inspire or at Instagram at Sister Speak about what you think of this. And I think my last kind of summarize would be to put your needs before everyone else's, because if you don't satisfy your life and you're not thinking about yourself more, then you're not going to be able to help other people. So this is the end of our show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.